Hey y'all, it's Danielle from Black Business Boom and Black Owned Nashville, and I'm live at the offices of Charles Frazier, who is a tax and estate planning attorney here in the Nashville area. I'm excited to have this conversation, but before we jump into it, if you have any questions for Charles, make sure you drop them in the comments so we can make sure we get to you before we wrap up today. Well, let's jump into it, Charles. How are you today?
I am doing just fine. It's Friday. We made it through another week, and I get 1.5 days off. I got a speaking engagement tomorrow. So
okay, yeah, and I teach in the morning, so I understand. Well, we're gonna enjoy the time that we do have off. Well, let's talk about something that nobody wants to talk about: is taxes.
Okay.
Right? We only want to talk about it when we get the tax return, but I'm excited to just learn more about, like, as humans, not even just business owners, individuals, what should we be thinking about now as we're planning for tax season next year to make sure that we're maximizing either our return or decreasing our tax liability?
Yeah. So what you're alluding to is tax planning, and ultimately the key is. I get people all the time who call me at the end of a tax year and say, "Hey, how much money can I save?" And what they don't understand is taxes is a result of the transactions that you already engaged in throughout the year. So the only way that I can change what happened through the end of the year is to have a time machine, and unfortunately, I don't have one of those. I think if I did have one of those, I would not be a tax attorney. I just understand what six numbers I needed to put in.
Exactly.
and then run back in time on it. But tax planning. So if you're going to engage in any major transaction during the course of the year, it's important that you speak with your tax professional, because the way you engage in those transactions will dictate the result that you get. For example, let's just say you were selling a large business asset. And the income that you were going to get from the sale, or the proceeds that you were going to get from the sale of that business asset, was going to put you into the next tax bracket. Well, you could structure that transaction so that you can take installments. And so now you got a piece of the larger transaction taxable in this particular year, and you stretch out or defer the taxes owed over a number of years. So you're still getting your money, you're just not getting it all right now.
Okay, that's good to know. There's so many things that we don't know, right? But one of the most frequent questions I get from other business owners is how to choose the right formation type for their business and what the benefits are to LLCs or SCorp, C-Corps. Do you have any? I know there's not a one size fits all approach. I'm definitely aware of that. But what tips can you give us if we are trying to determine if we're in the right structure or if we maybe need to try something else?
Yeah. So a lot of times clients come to my office and they say, "Hey, they've already got it in their mind. I want to do an LLC. I want to do an S-Corp corporation, whatever it is that they want to do. And hey, how can I do this to save taxes?" And what I respond generally is, that is the tail wagging the dog. You need to be coming in and telling me how you're going to operate, and then let me prescribe what type of business is best for how you are going to actually operate. Because I can say you should be in an LLC, but you're not going to run your business in a manner. You're going to run your business how you're going to run your business, and you're not going to deviate from how you're going to run your business just because you're an LLC.
Exactly.
So it's best for you to come in and say, "Hey, this is what I'm going to be doing," and then for me to say, "Okay, an S corp will work for you, or LLC." And basically the only differences between those things when you're talking about tax results anyway. Corporations have the ability to retain income and equity, whereas LLCs and S corps, they're pass-through entities, which essentially means regardless of whether you take the money out at the end of a tax year, the proprietors or the shareholders or the members, those persons are going to be taxed on the money that's left over. Whereas in a corporation, it can stay there and retain earnings. Now there is a small tax on accumulating too much retained earnings, because they're not just going to let you hide it off in your corporation. They'll hit you with a little tax on that. But That's the main difference between those two deals.
If we're talking about someone who's like currently a sole proprietor
Mhm.
and they're considering like, should I be an LLC? Because we know over the last few years, like everybody's online, like get your LLC and hire your kids, and everybody's a professional and knows what they're talking about, but really don't. But so there are a lot of folks that are now coming with this question of like, should I get an LLC? Does it make sense? What I typically, and I'm clearly not a tax attorney, but I typically tell folks if you don't have anything to protect, I don't know if that makes sense to even pay that
Mhm.
fee. But from your perspective, are there other things that we should be considering when we go from being a sole proprietor, doing hair out our house or whatever it may be, to trying to transition into the LLC?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And you didn't have to be a tax attorney to get it figured out, I guess.
Good.
LLCs are state creations, and the main focus of LLCs is liability protection. Let's just say I open up an LLC, Frazier Co. LLC. Somebody walks in the front door here, falls, cracks their head open. They want to sue. Because I'm an LLC, they can't sue me personally. Tax law, I mean, the Tennessee Code is set up such that the proprietors cannot be held liable for the liabilities of the entity itself. And again, this is just state creation. So folks all the time say, "Oh, they come in with federal tax questions and they relate it to the LLC." And what they don't understand is that the LLC is disregarded for federal tax purposes.
The way, I mean, and I was one of those people. And then when I went to do my taxes the first time for the business, it was because it's a single member LLC. It was like I was just doing regular taxes for Danielle. Like it didn't make a difference.
And that's that you'll understand that that's the case by way of how you report your earnings to the Internal Revenue Service. So when you're an LLC, you don't even file an extra tax return. You file your regular 1040 and you attach a Schedule C. So that tells you I'm filing a 1040. Yeah. And there's no extra tax return that I need to file. So that's the reason that it's a disregarded entity. They don't even care. The only way that the government knows that you are an LLC is because you're going to have that Schedule C attached to it. Okay. So SCorps file the 1120S, corporations file 1120s. Those are totally separate tax returns for the entity. And of course, we could get into partnerships and all that kind of stuff. It gets, kind of a little crazy.
Now let's talk about probate and like estate planning. I worked as a banker for several years, and so I saw some of the really bad sides of what happens when you do not plan. And folks coming in like, I think my mama had an account over here, and how am I going to get it? And small estates affidavits and all of these things that make it really difficult when someone passes. So I know the importance now of planning, doing estate planning, letting your folks know where your money is, all those things. But I'd love to hear from you why it's important specifically for Black people to be estate planning, especially if we have assets and we own things. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So when you don't get me on my soapbox about us and planning. And the reason that I say that is because, like you, I've seen, grandmama and them, went out and was able to work hard enough to get something. And then I hear it all the time. Oh, this is heir property. So grandmama and them passed away. Kids and everybody else just decided to live in the house for many years. And then all of a sudden, one day, somebody maybe wants to sell, or the opposite, the other end of the spectrum, nobody wants to pay the property tax.
Like they owe some taxes, always some taxes involved.
And just as soon as you don't pay those, well, not just as soon as you got an accumulation of a property tax that you cannot pay, then it's going to be a courthouse sale. And so now grandmama and them house is gone. And there's not a lot you can do to get it back other than to redeem that property by paying that amount that you failed to pay in the first place. So we're just so far behind as a people with this sort of planning. Whenever we get the opportunity to give our descendants a leg up, we should take that. And that's ultimately what it's about. It's about preserving your legacy. It's about getting from the point where you go through life chasing after the bag, getting the bag, and then you get to the end of life and you don't make plans to pass the bag.
Right. it makes no sense.
And so then the bag has a hole in the bottom of it. And instead of your kids getting a step up in life and being able to grow from that point forward, they have to start from square one. Mm-hmm. And so we see, because of the way things were in this country, that, the folks who weren't in our particular situation, they got a chance to pass assets from generation to generation to generation.
Generational wealth.
And folks, some of my clients have a nerve to complain about, oh, I only get $30,000 from the truck. What? Do you know some people out here working and that's all they make is $30,000?
Literally.
And that's what they, you got all your bill money coming from your ancestors.
Yeah.
That's a really big leg up. Amazing. So you don't really have to have lots and lots of money, but you have to, pass the bag. So what we're talking about is what happens at death. And when people think about estate planning, they generally think about what happens at death. But there's a period of time before death. Generally, people get sick, they become incapacitated. What's going to happen during that time? Are the bills going to stop coming? No. And if you don't have a plan in place and people selected to handle your affairs, you can come out of a disability situation and be way behind the power curve just because nobody had the power to do the things that needed to be done to take care of your business while you were unable to take care of your business. So whenever I do estate planning for my clients, I try to focus on the living documents the most. The living documents being the powers of attorney for healthcare, finance. Those documents are essentially legal identity assignment, where you get to tell somebody else, hey, if I'm unable to handle my own business affairs, you do this for me for my benefit.
And that's another thing that I see people wait till it's too late, almost for someone to even be able to give that consent, because you have to be in your right mind to be able to give consent for someone to be your power of attorney over medical and financial. And many times we wait till things go wrong and then we're like, oh, we got to get this power of attorney for grandma, and grandma not together. We can't get it notarized.
I don't know how many, conversations that I've had to have like that, where somebody's calling me up, and of course it's the children, son, daughter, somebody. Hey, I need a power of attorney for grandmom and them, or I need a power of attorney for. Okay, that's cool. Where is grandma? Oh well, she she feeling a little sick and this, that, and it's too late.
It's too late.
It is too late. If you don't have capacity, you cannot. I ethically cannot allow somebody without capacity to sign a power of attorney. What's the alternative at that point? What you just did, you went from a document that might have cost you $250 just for that one document, might have cost you $250, to now a guardianship proceeding that's going to involve three attorneys. Three attorneys. They got to appoint one for the person that's coming to try to take the power away from the person that doesn't have capacity anymore. You got that person who doesn't have capacity has to have an attorney, and then the court is going to appoint an attorney because the court's not going to go out and investigate the situation on their own. So they're going to hire an attorney to go out and do that. And guess where all that money's coming from? Grandmama.
The state. Yep, that is crazy. I mean, there's so many things. And again, we don't know a lot of these things until it's too late. We didn't even know we should have a power of attorney or we should be thinking about these things until somebody asked for it, until you tried to make a decision and they were like, no, where's the power of attorney? Who has the right to speak on behalf of this person? And then you don't have it. So it's so important that we are planning ahead. So let's talk about when that should happen.
Now.
Okay.
And what I mean by now is people think because, they have to accumulate a lot of assets before they do anything, but what they fail to understand is the minute a child, a minor, turns the age of 18 or 21 in some states, they automatically get protections, HIPAA protections for their medical stuff. So if you send your child off to college and your child gets into an accident or is otherwise sick, that child isn't a child. You can show up and try to talk to the doctor, and maybe the doctor might talk to you, but he doesn't have to. So when that child goes off, the mom should have a power of attorney to be able to help that child make medical decisions.
Oh my, that's something I've never even considered.
I mean, it's people, again, it's the life part. People think, okay, when I die, if I don't have a bunch of stuff, then I don't need to do any estate planning. But that's not. And so what else do I mean by now? The minute you have a child, we got folks, my mama had me when she was 15 years old. And just as soon as she had me, at that point, where was I going with that?
She could have got power of attorney.
I'm sorry, I'm stuttering and going on here, and maybe because I just admitted that my mom had me when she was 15. But that happens. So the powers of attorneys are absolutely essential, and that's where I was going with it. The will. Who's going to take care of your kid if you're not here to take care of your kid? So that's where I was going with it. My mom was a single mom. So she's having me when she's 15, which means that, she was having me with another boy.
Yeah.
With a boy.
Right.
who wasn't, able to take care of himself at that point. So that if something would have happened to my mama, my family would have had to go to court to have somebody appointed over me. So my mama was in my life, and she knew who loved me, would take care of me as if I were their own child. If she can nominate a guardian for me, then the courts will pick that nomination up and roll with it, unless that person was, molester or dealing drugs or something crazy like that. So, I mean, that is important as well. You have to nominate folks to care for your children. And then if you've got
we think we get like godparents, and that's like a thing. Like that's going, but apparently that's not going to stand.
I mean, they could go to court. I mean, let's just say
they're going to have to go to court about it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But let's just say the godparents are, maybe best friends, that kind of situation. You maybe they raised their children together. They became really, I'm calling this person my aunt or my uncle. That ain't really my aunt or my uncle, but that's my aunt or my uncle, because they're best friends or whatever. But then my family comes in. The court is definitely going to favor my family over my mom's best friend, who would have taken care of me just like my mom would have taken care of me. If my mom doesn't appoint someone or nominate someone, the best friend, then the court is going to go with family. So by default, the best friend lost.
Yeah, and we know family is not always the best choice. So that is great advice. So we got one question, and then I'm going to ask you, how will someone get started? But one question is, what are the benefits of being an LLC filing as an SCorp?
LLC filing to be treated as an SCorp. There's really ultimately the SCorp and the LLC are treated the same, just like we discussed earlier. Both of them are pass-through entities.
Okay.
So the only difference between the two is that you filed as a well, actually, you're an LLC regardless, because LLC, they can make those distinctions as to how they want to be treated under the tax law. But because LLCs and SCorps are pass-throughs, there's really no big difference, no huge benefit, one treatment or the other one. SCorps, because they're corporations, can do things with respect to employee benefits. So I mean, if you were maybe you had a cleaning company, and you had a crew of folks and you wanted to provide them with, but you incorporated as an LLC, and you wanted to get SCorp treatment in that particular case, then maybe that would be beneficial for you in that case. But as far as the bottom line is concerned, both of them pass through.
Okay, good to know. All right, well, tell us, because there's a lot of things that apparently we need to be doing, both on the tax side, planning. I think it's the perfect time for us to start planning for next year, right? And so if someone wants to start doing that planning, but they also are like, hey, I need to start looking into this estate planning. Like, I've not done anything, or maybe I just have a will, but don't have anything else. What are the next steps? What can they do to connect with you and get started?
Oh, well, they just call my office at 615-267-0125, and then that gets them started. My customer care team will take the necessary information on the front side, get them put on my calendar. I tell everybody my name's on the front door, but my staff or my team tells me what to do. So wherever they tell me to be, if you were to call that number 615-267-0125 and get on my calendar, then we'll discuss your tax or estate planning matters. Generally, the way that it works, just so that you kind of get an idea about the process, is the clients, they call, we do an initial consultation. Before that initial consultation, I'll send out an estate planning worksheet. So then the person, that the potential new client, will have an idea about what kind of information I need. And so basically, about page 3 of that worksheet says, it gives me I ask you a bunch of pointed questions and ask you how concerned you are about those pointed questions. So some people, I don't want to go through probate. So that's one of them. I'm concerned about taking care of my children or grandchildren. I'm concerned about being able to take care of my affairs when I'm sick. So then that gives me an idea about what the person is concerned about. So then I can focus the planning around what they're concerned about. And then basically after that, it goes through and we start to look at your assets so that I can help you understand if you've got holes. So some people, go out and they get into these businesses, and part of business, sometimes you got to go out and take loans and all that other good stuff, because it takes money to make money a lot of times. So what happens if you pass away and that loan is still outstanding? Did you have enough insurance in place to cover that? Or did you leave your family in a bad spot because you got all of this outstanding debt, kind of thing? So we get in and we kind of talk about that stuff. And as far as the tax stuff is concerned, generally, I wish more people would come for tax planning.
I will be, so don't worry. I definitely will be. As a business owner, we should be doing that. If you're a business owner, you definitely should be doing tax planning. And it's something that I just realized in the last few months, and I didn't know that you did that. So I'm so happy that now I have a resource that I can come to, because it's a very different thing working with a bookkeeper or working with an accountant or even working with someone who does taxes than working with someone who understands tax code and can help you to actually do planning. So I'm super excited, and I'll be making my own appointment. Give us the phone number one more time.
615-267-0125.
And is there a website where folks can find you?
Oh, yes, crfrazierlaw.com.
All right. This was wonderful. Lots of great information. If you're catching us on the replay, make sure you drop any questions, and I'll make sure that Charles gets those questions and we get you your answers. Thanks so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.